Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for everybody for joining us today for our discussion of important issues with our candidates for elected office. I'm Mike Polson, member of the POA Governmental Affairs Committee. We have other members of our committee here who I'd like to recognize. Margaret Carroll, our chair, Scott Black, Joe Bedencourt, and Steve Packwood. Before I continue, I would like to say a special thanks to Scott Black. This is his last day on the committee, and he has done a tremendous job, a lot of hard work for the committee and a hard work for Tellico Village, and we'd just like to thank him today. Okay, other dignitaries, so to speak. I'd like to recognize our POA board members, our president, Bob Brunetti and Ed Groleman, both of our POA board members, and also Chet Pillsbury, who is here as our CEO. Okay, I'd like to ask everybody to stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Government Affairs Committee has a primary goal to act as a liaison and advocate for the village and as an educator of elected officials and commissions as well as villagers. Part of our mission is to be a leader in community activism and get out the vote efforts. We serve as liaisons to organizations engaging with governmental and quasi-governmental officials and organizations, bringing Tellico Village issues to them for consideration. This goal is why we offer this forum today. This forum, as I said, is being recorded and will be posted at a later date on the Tellico Village Network. I'd like to briefly explain the process we are going to follow today. Each candidate will be allowed an introduction and then 5 minutes, and then we will take questions from the audience. Anyone with a question can line up at the microphone. Please state your name in case we need to get information to you later today or tomorrow. Indicate to whom your question is directed to. You have 1 minute to ask your question. Please be succinct and to the point. If you have multiple questions, please ask only one question, especially if there are others behind you waiting in line to ask their question. If there is no one in line behind you, you may ask more than one question. We look forward to a civil debate, perhaps a lively discourse, but always with respect to our guests and to the other participants. Last, we will wrap up. This will go approximately 40 minutes. We will have 10 minutes to wrap up, and candidates will have an opportunity to share their comments at the end. We'll start on alphabetical order. Mr. King, Mr. Allen, would you care to take the podium?
So this is my 5-minute intro?
This is your
Well, first let me tell you, I am so happy to be here. I appreciate Mike and Margaret and all you folks putting this together, because this is democracy, this is America, this is what we do, and it is an important time for our country. This is an important election. I am so sorry that the congressman is not with us today, because we were very much looking forward to visiting with him or his representative. We don't have that. So, but you know what? People that know me say I have a motto, and in our life, I said, I'm not going if I don't have a good time. So let's have a good time. Let's have some fun. Let's talk about the country, where it can go, and what we might need to do. Now, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've spent my entire life in this area. In fact, I was president of Citizens National Bank. You may remember Citizens National Bank. We had an office here in Von Orr, and we financed a lot of these homes here in Kahidi, this beautiful area. I grew up in the Chattanooga area. I had a mom and a dad and 3 sisters, and we grew up in a 2-bedroom rental house. And people always like to laugh because they said, Jack, where did you sleep? I said, I slept in the hall, and that's where I thought all boys slept, was in the hall. But anyway, We were hard workers, though. I was a chicken catcher and a hay hauler. I worked in grocery stores. I sold golf balls. I worked in the carpet mills of Dalton. I worked in the chemical plants of Kensington. I was fortunate enough to go to Berry College, where I could work my way through school, came back to Chattanooga, met my wife, Connie, and went into the banking business. I majored in business and accounting. Fortunate enough to come to McMinn County, where I spent about 38 years of my life working for Citizens National Bank, a great community bank. And when I was there, fortunately, we had offices in Oak Ridge and Kingston, and we had 4 offices in Monroe County and Bradley County, McMinn County. So I spent my life right here in this corridor. So I kind of know people here. I know what we need. Now, people say, now, Jack, why? Oh, by the way, let me keep going. I lost my wife to ovarian cancer about the time I retired. And so I wake up and I'm a single guy and I'm trying to figure out what to do the rest of my life. And I do some other things, but one of the things I did is I wound up moving to Chattanooga because my wife was an only child. And so now I'm not responsible. I get the joy of taking care of my mother-in-law. And so I've been in Chattanooga the past few years taking care of my 91-year-old mother-in-law. And but I got to looking at it. I got to looking at Washington. You guys watch the news? I mean, I had a lot of time on my hands. Didn't have a job, didn't have a wife. And so I'm watching the news and I'm saying, these guys aren't working. You know what I did? I got up every day from the time I was 13, 14 years old. I went to work. I go to work every day now. I went to work. They're not doing anything, and it's driving me nuts. And I'm talking to my friends, and one of my very good friends, Dr. Tricia King, is on the front row there. I was talking to her, and I said, I'm so upset with this stuff. And she looked at me one day, and she said, all you do is complain. Why don't you do something about it? Why don't you do something about it? I thought, geez, I never thought about that. Maybe I should do something about it. So then I started talking to friends like Rachel Campbell and Matt Adams, our campaign manager, and folks that said, what could we do about this? We said, well, we need to make a serious congressional run. We need to talk about the issues that affect people in this district. We need to get out and see them and listen and go. And so that's what we've done. For 9 months, that's what we've done. Somebody's going to tell me when 5 minutes is up. Because I'll keep going. I'll shut it down, y'all. Yeah. Just tell me. Give me the 5. I'm close. Okay, all right. I'm close. Let me tell you. In the last 9 months, we've traveled 25,000 miles in this district. And remember, this is probably one of the most gerrymandered districts in the country. It starts at the Georgia line, and it goes almost to Kentucky. It is designed to keep a person from running. 730,000 people? Not a lot of people running for this office, are they? And but the thing about me is I love to go, and I love to visit, and I love to listen to people, and that's what we do every day. And that's what we're doing today. We had an event this morning, and we've got an event in Oak Ridge tonight, and this is just a little stop in between today. So that's enough about me for now. I've probably eaten up my 5 minutes. But again, thank you so much. Thanks. Let's have fun. Ask questions. You know, if we don't know the answers, we'll make them up, won't we? I'll sit down now. Thank you.
Please welcome Stephen Scooter King.
All right, he told you my name, so I'll reiterate that for you. My name is Stephen King. My real name is not Scooter by any means whatsoever. My father called me Scooter because he didn't want me to be called Junior, and Phil Rizzuto was his favorite baseball player when he was young. So everybody calls me Scooter except for my mom when she's mad at me, and then somebody calls me Stephen. So, but since everybody knows me as Scooter, I'm running as Stephen Scooter King. I'm from Chattanooga originally, from the Saudi Daisy area. Parents got divorced, bumped around with my mom, lived with my grandmother. My grandmothers both had a huge part in my raising. As a 6-year-old, I put my first picture of John F. Kennedy on the wall, became obsessed with politics from that point. I'm an independent, so I really appreciate y'all doing this, because as an independent, It is impossible to get a platform. You can't get support. You can't get opportunities. You can't get, I mean, people don't invite independents to speak or to have anything to do with it. Now let me tell you why I'm an independent. My father is a heavy conservative. My mother is a proclaimed yellow dog Democrat. I grew up in a family that could not talk about politics or it ended up in a fight. And I'll be honest with you, once you get outside of your local government, I believe with all my heart that everybody in Washington, D.C., I don't care which party they are in, there is a uniparty that is out for them and not for us. I think once they get to Washington, D.C., they forget who they came from, where they came from, and they represent their own interests. That's why you gerrymander an entire district, so you can stay in office and you can keep your power. And I'm not here for power, and I'm darn sure not here to be in office for a long time. But I got in this race, I'm not going to continue to tell you about my past, but I got into this race, and I'm going to go and apologize about it because I'm going to use a dirty word when I tell you why I'm doing this. I raised 3 boys and a stepdaughter since she was 18 months old. And I've raised them all to believe 100% that if you are not part of the solution, then you are part of the problem. And if you're not doing anything to bring solution, then you can't complain about it. And if you complain about it at that point, doing nothing, you're just a bitch and nobody wants to hear adults bitch. So I was driving across the dam one day and I get so sick of looking at those cranes that have not moved in a decade. They've been sitting there. I want to know who he's having scotch with that's getting paid to lease those cranes that do absolutely nothing for nearly a decade. It's 30% over budget. He just asked for more money to finish it, signed a $2 trillion bill so he could get $20 million for Chattanooga, not representing the rest of the district, but his hometown. And then he immediately allocated 10 million of the 20 million towards infrastructure down by the new stadium we're getting. I'm over that. I'm so over you signing these huge bills, taking taxpayer money to do things that you end up not doing. So as I came across that bridge and I came home, and my 24-year-old son, he's obsessed with politics just like his dad, and I started complaining. And he said, well, Dad, when you gonna stop being a bitch? And the next morning I went to the election commission and I put my name in. I would like for my mother to be able to vote for me. I would like for my father to be able to vote for me. And if I declared as a Republican or a Democrat, neither one of them would be left out. And I love my parents. They don't like each other, but I love both of them. So that's how I got involved in this race. I'm a barber for 30 years. I've owned my own business for 25 years. I sit there every single day and I talk to people. I talk to people about politics, which I was told not to in barber college. I talk to people about religion, which I was told not to whenever I was in barber college. I talk to people about whatever they are interested in and I have any knowledge of. And if I don't have knowledge, I listen to them, because I don't like to be wrong and I don't like to look stupid. And so if I don't know what I'm talking about, I shut my mouth. However, I have some friends that are here that can tell you if I do know what I'm talking about, you can't shut me up, because I will not shut up about it until I have made my point. So I'm here today, same as Jack, because we are frustrated with the job. We have a nickname for our representative where I come from. It's Do Nothing Chuck, because he doesn't really do anything, and he darn sure never has done anything for me. And I do believe that you probably have a heart to do for, because if you were in banking, you are trying to make sure people got houses, people got cars, make sure, so you understand serving people. But I am a servant. And during the COVID, and I'm going to talk fast because I'm running out of time. So during the COVID, one thing I learned after I opened up, and I led my industry in reopening. The most pressure I had during COVID was people from Canada, California, New York, Miami, worried about opening back up because they lived in places that didn't agree with being free. And how do we do this, Scooter? How are we going to open our shops back up without killing people? That was the most stress that I had had. But in that time, I started talking to all my clients about the comeback. And I found that literally 50% of my clients are Democrats and 50% of my clients are Republicans. So when I say I hear from both sides of our district, and I have people from 7 counties that come get their hair cut. So there's a lot of them. I hear what everybody is going through. I hear it whether you're a farmer, whether you're a banker, whether you're a barber, whether you're a bartender. I have heard what your concerns are for our district. I've heard the frustrations that we have all felt by having somebody less than competent at meeting our needs. So I'm running, me and Jack, against the incumbent who did not show up, which I'm probably a little bit childish for saying this, but how important are you to him? I mean, he took a freaking taxi cab from Wisconsin, but couldn't, and I don't know if you've ever been to Wisconsin or Illinois, but there's a lot of trains. You can jump on a train anywhere up there. But he couldn't get up here. I stopped and jumped a guy's car off on my way up here and still made it. So just remember that question.
All right. Well, with that very informative opening, I would like, thank you both. We proceed on to the question and answer period, and the floor is open. I see a vacant microphone, so please step up and ask your question. Once again, please
Thank
keep
you.
your question succinct, 1 minute only.
Thank you.
Ask the question.
All right.
And if you gentlemen want to step here to answer the question versus from your seat, feel free.
My name is John Fornicola. I'm from Chattanooga, and I'd like to ask both candidates to describe for us what you're going to do about the bleeding at our border. How are you going to stop these illegal aliens from coming into our country? And just recently, 2 of them raped a 12-year-old girl, then strangled her and drug her into the river. And another 15-year-old girl was multiply raped and drug into the river. We got a problem, and I want to know what you're going to do about it. Thank you.
Great question. And I thought I was the fun guy.
Yeah, I'm known to have a good time.
But he's the fun guy, and I didn't mention Sean McKeon, our treasurer, who I taught in Sunday school years ago, and he is part of helping me get this thing going. And Dr. Pat Waters, who's part of our campaign, Dr. Shelley Griffith, who's part of their campaign. Let's talk about the border. I am so mad. I'm like you. You know why I'm mad? Do you know why? You should be mad. We should all be mad. You know, we should be furious. You know why? We had a deal. Let's everybody raise our hand. We had a deal, didn't we? A conservative Republican named Lankford, a senator, put a deal together. Now, let's be honest. The Democrat Party was kind of a push for the Democrat Party. But you know what they said? John, they said, this is important enough. It's important enough to do something. We had a deal. But it didn't get done. Why didn't it get done? Anybody want to tell me? Scooter, you want to tell me why it didn't get done?
Say other people scratching other people's backs.
Well, let's say why it didn't get done. Let's just do what? Donald Trump didn't want it. He said, you know what? Let's don't do that deal. Let's don't do that deal because I want to hold that for the election. How many people are furious about that? I'm mad. I am. Can you tell? I can show a little emotion every now and then. It's a problem. Now, let's talk a little about immigration because we all act like it's a horrible thing, but we're all immigrants. You know that, don't you? I mean, we're all from someplace else. We've got a 1.6 birth rate in this country. Did you realize that? We are not replacing ourselves. If we don't have 2 to a couple of million people a year coming into this country, we're going to have to turn the lights off. Now, it's a fact. Yesterday, I was with a man that owns a contracting company. He's a contractor. You know what he said? He said, I can't find people. I need people. He said, why don't you go down to the border, sort them out. That's what he said. And listen, he was a right-wing guy. Sort them out, give them a Social Security card, give them a green card, send them up here, put them to work, and we'll sort it out from there. Now, that seems a little simplistic, but it's a problem. I'm in Chattanooga. You're in Chattanooga. How many restaurants have you seen close? Limit their hours. they can't find people. So immigration is not a dirty word. Improper, uncontrolled immigration is the problem. Now, if I'm elected, you know what the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to go find Langford. And I'm going to say, hey, let's do this again. And I'm hoping that we're going to have a democratically controlled Congress. And guys, we need it because, folks, the last Congress was the least effective Congress probably in history, I know, since the Depression. They're not doing anything. So it's time. You send me up there. We're going to go back and say, I don't care who does the deal. I don't care if it's an independent. I don't care if it's a Republican. If it helps people in East Tennessee, if it helps people in this country, I'm doing it because you know what? At my age, I'm not looking for friends. I'm not looking for a career. I'm not looking for to be famous. I don't want to be in CNN, but I want to come back and look you and I, John, and say, John, you know what? We got that done. How many minutes did I use?
2 minutes. He's walking up.
Huh?
He's walking up.
All right, here you go. All right, Scooter.
My turn.
Jump on that one. He's the
All right.
fun guy. Make it
So,
fun.
there's not much I disagree with Jack's assessment of what's going on at the border, but I don't call it immigration. I call it invasion. I don't believe it's immigration. I believe immigration is something that Washington, D.C. has used for 50 years as a talking point, as a fighting point. I believe that most of the people in Congress don't really want to fix problems because then they don't have anything to run on during the next election cycle. Immigration shouldn't, okay, so I'm going to, mothers or daughters, sons of the Revolution, both sides of my family came over on a boat and fought in the American Revolution for the freedom of this country. So they were immigrants. I don't have a problem with immigrants. I have a problem with a messed up immigration system that causes 10 years for you to get to become a naturalized citizen. I think that's jacked up. And I think if we're actually electing smart people in Congress, they should be able to figure out how to come to a conclusion. I mean, I can sit down with some dudes at the Arby's, for crying out loud, and we can come up with some better solutions than what we're actually doing at the border. But what we have going on right now at the border isn't immigration. It is an invasion. It is people who aren't being vetted. They are not being tracked. They are not being kept up with. I have no problem with people coming over the border. I mean, for one, vet them. Give them a work visa and give them a 6-month probation to see if you're actually going to contribute and assimilate to the United States of America and the way that we want to live. Right now, we've got such an invasion that they're disrupting our cities. They're killing our citizens. They are overriding everywhere they show up. Some people thought it was a good idea to ship them to New York and all this, that, and the other. Well, look at the problem there now. Look at the problem all over the country where we're trying to disperse enough of these millions of people that are coming into our nation who have, and I'm going to throw a number out there, and I don't have a proof behind it, but I bet you there's 30% of them have no desire to become an American. They are self-actors. They're looking for their own interests, and honestly, our government is giving them money to do so. I ran into a Colombian on the street. We had to use one of them little freaking apps to be able to communicate, to translate. But he literally gets $1,800 a month on a check card. He gets approval at a bank to buy a vehicle without having to go through what you and I do. He gets a free cell phone. They are literally handing these people packets, and they're profitizing coming across illegally. If you're going to give me, I even told my brother when he was living in L.A., I said, dude, you just need to go to Mexico, and you need to sneak across that border. Make sure you get your telephone. Make sure you get your $1,800 a month on your check card. And to support, shut that thing down until you can figure out proper immigration laws, and we can control it, because we are not doing that now.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jessica Hampton. I'm from Signal Mountain. I know we're talking about people who are coming across our border and murdering people, right? But I have a different concern. I'm a mother. I have children in schools and public schools. I love our public schools. But what I want to know is what you're going to do to keep my children safe in those public schools from people who live here, who have guns, who are coming into those schools and shooting them. We've seen a lot of people concerned about someone being shot in the ear. I'm concerned about our children. So that's what I want to know what you're going to do. Thank you.
Let's switch the order up.
I got the tee box this time. We are at a golf course. We are at a golf course. All right, I think we need radical reformation in our education system, period, starting from the top down. And you're from Chattanooga, you know about the Hamilton County Department of Education, and there's a coup. I went to, my kids went to public school. I started them in private school, took them to, I'm a supporter, former military, I'm a supporter of everybody in America being able to have a gun if they want a gun. You know, I think it is a right that is in our Constitution, and I think that here's my point, and I'm going to expose myself a little bit. If our government has guns, we need guns. That's the thing. Now, protecting our children, I have 4 of them, and that is a major concern because we don't have proper SROs across half the time in Hamilton County. An SRO is actually a dude who doesn't want to be a cop anymore and wants to go have a job at the ones that I've dealt with. They want to go have a job where they don't really have to do anything. So if you have an SRO who really isn't there to do a job in the first place, you can't protect the kids. I mean, I've seen pictures from the 1800s where you had a dude sitting out front of a little itty bitty schoolhouse with a rifle to make sure that nobody did. I don't know how I feel about teachers carrying guns in a school. I don't think we need guns in school. I think that's what we've got to get away from, is guns entering into the school. However, if you got to go through a strict security policy to get into the school, I mean, we let them flow into the border. We let them flow into a Catholic school, an elementary school. I mean, how are these people? I can't even get in to give my kids their cleats when they left them at home. How does somebody get into a school with a gun? I don't understand. My kids went to East Stratton High School, most diverse high school in the city of Chattanooga. And literally, you had to be rung in to get into the school. There's no other way to get there. So, but there's got to be security measures that are in place because we have a huge mental health crisis in America, if you're not aware of it. And I'm not going to get into what I believe is causing it, but when you have a crisis going on, you have to address the protection of the citizens of the United States, starting with the children. And if you don't protect, because that's what we're here to do first, even as a congressman, a president, you have to protect the citizens first. And sometimes you got to make some efforts and some strides to increase security so that you don't allow people who nobody knows into a school. I don't understand why it's not hard to get into a school. Because literally, that's a true story. My kids leave their cleats at home, and I got to take them, and I can't get in the school, and I'm on my lunch break.
2 minutes.
So it's got to be reforming the education system, and we got to protect our children at the school.
Well, why don't you throw us a softball? Come on. Let's talk about guns. Grew up with guns. I'm a gun owner. I have a lifetime carry permit. You know why? Because I grew up here in East Tennessee. This is our environment, like it or not. Well, guess what? We've gone too far. The Surgeon General has said that the gun epidemic in this country has reached the point where it's time to do something different. I think we all agree it's time to do something different when the leading cause of children's death are gunshot wounds. It's time to do something different. Is it time to say something radical like an 18-year-old that can't buy beer should be able to buy an assault weapon? Maybe we start right there. But let me tell you this. I've got gun dealers working with me. I have gun dealers working with me who say, we could do this and we could do this. You want to know why nobody wants to do anything? Because it's not politically correct. If I start talking about guns, I mean, not only am I not going to get elected, I'm not going to get reelected, but let's talk what will have to happen in this country. The first thing is we, as a country, have to say, you know what? We got a gun problem. Now, if you got 7% of the world's population and 47% of the guns, you probably have a gun problem. Our campaign manager, Matt Adams joined the Army at 17. He came out of full-time Army, went in the reserves to run this, and we talk a lot about weapons because he knows weapons. You know what? He had to go away for 3 days this week because he has to qualify for his weapon every year. He's gone through weeks and weeks of training. And we got 18-year-olds that go to a gun shop and walk out with an assault rifle. That's not a problem. Now, here's what's going to happen. First off, we're going to say, we have a problem. That's where we are. And we all got to look at each other and say, got to do something. Now, in 1968, there were 5.5 car deaths for every automobile on the road in 1968. Today, there's 1.4 for every 10,000 automobiles. What happened? In 68, you said, we got to do something. It wasn't one thing. It was a lot of things. It was seat belts. It was better highways. It was taking people off the road that shouldn't be driving. It was driver training. It was safer cars. Now, people still get killed in car wrecks, but guess what? Nothing like they did in 1968. It took 50 years to do that. That's what it's going to have to take in the gun world. I'd like to say no, but we can start somewhere. Could we start by saying an 18-year-old shouldn't have an assault weapon? Would that be a good place to start? I mean, shake your head, maybe. Maybe start right there. And then maybe say, ooh, maybe everybody should have a background check. Maybe everybody should have a background check. And maybe selling guns should be a little more regular. You realize 68% of the crimes that happened last year happened with stolen guns. Hey, do you know what the #1 crime right now is? You know what it is? It's people breaking in pickup trucks. You know why? Because they got guns. People drive into Walmart, they leave the pickup truck there, and somebody says, that guy's got a gun, and they break into it. So there's so many things that can be done. Does Jack Allen think there's a problem? Yes. Will Jack Allen work on it? Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm a strong believer in the Second Amendment.
Okay.
I worked for the NRA and the Law Enforcement Assistant Division for years, training police firearms instructors how to teach their police officers about firearms. If you pull any police officer to the side, most of them will tell you, I wish everybody had a firearm to protect themselves. Law enforcement are there to protect communities, not individuals.
Ma'am, please ask your question.
Here, my question is on something else. I just want you to be aware that firearms are a necessity, unfortunately. I thought Congressman Fleshman was going to be here. My question was for him, but since the two of you are willing to answer questions, my topic is invasive silver carp. Would you agree to additional funding for deterrence on the carp?
Yes.
Would you change the Water Resource Development Act bill, because currently it is only allowing for deterrence in areas where there are enough carp present to test the deterrence? We need a preventative barrier at Watts Bar Lock. What do you know about the invasive carp?
Well, it's
Go ahead. Come on up, Mr. Allen.
I am so happy you asked that question, because about 9 months ago, when I started running for this campaign, somebody walked up to me and she said, what do you know about invasive carp? I said, I don't know a thing about invasive carp. They said, you better know something. And so I researched invasive carp. I watched videos. You guys ever watched the video on an invasive carp? If they get in this lake, you can't water ski anymore. I guarantee you, you're going to get killed by a carp jumping in the air. So I looked at the barriers. I mean, and they're close now. I mean, aren't they up in about Nickajack now?
A angler had one jump into his boat in Chickamauga in
okay.
October of 2019.
Okay, so we're in Chickamauga now.
Chickamauga.
I looked at the barriers. I think there was one that was like air bubbles or something. I mean, I studied them all trying to figure it out. Now, you know, I'm a banker, not a whatever, but I totally agree. I would put it, I mean, I'm worried about it now. So yes, whatever we need to do, I'm in. Matt, can we do a bill on invasive carp?
I'll write it tonight.
He'll write it tonight.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no. I know about invasive carp. I hate them. What are you going to do? You know, anyway, okay. Go ahead, talk about invasive carp.
Well, thank you for educating me a little bit. Yeah. Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know what you was talking about when you asked the question. I mean, I didn't. It's not something I've heard of. It's not something anybody, but here's what I do know about how I live my life. It's not about what you know, it's about knowing how to find out what you need to know. And so, and I'm all about the environment. I work for a company, and I've worked for them for years. They're a 0-0 company. They don't. They're very environmentally conscious. Whatever affects our environment, I'm in to protect our environment. And invasive, you invade our our country, you invade our lakes, whatever it is, I'd like to see it stop, you know? I don't have enough information or knowledge myself, but I guarantee you I can find somebody that knows well, I haven't YouTubed it yet because I just now found out about it. But I will do everything that I can to, first of all, protect our environment, second of all, protect our communities, lakes, rivers, that's a huge importance to me. And I don't think that we actually spend enough money on it. I think that if you look at what the government spends money on, a lot of it's just blown. I mean, $65 million for gender studies in Pakistan. What could we have done with $65 million about the carp invasion? You know, so I would get there and I'd start trying to educate funds to where they should go and stop signing bills just because I made an agreement with somebody. If you'll sign mine, I'll sign yours.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Reed Hampton. I'm a high schooler from Signal Mountain. What I'm concerned about in our country is our healthcare crisis, and I was just wondering what the two of you have to say and how you want to address that is in your government.
You're up. Healthcare. Let's talk about health. You know, somebody asked me to really say, why are you doing this? Healthcare is huge. I may have mentioned I was a primary caregiver for my wife for 4.5 years. I know a lot more about healthcare than I want to. And I'm the primary caregiver for my 91-year-old mother-in-law in Chattanooga. Now, let me tell you why I want to go to Congress. I want to go for health care. And I appreciate that question. Do you realize that we spend more for health care in this country than any other country in the world? Right now, we're at about $13,000 per capita. The closest, I think, is Norway, I believe, at $8,000. So you would say, well, you know what? If we spend that much, we must have the best health care. Would that be right? No, it's not right. No. If you take all the industrialized nations and put them together, I think there's 11 of them. We're in 11th place. And Dr. Griffith is on our team. He is a retired gynecologist, and we talk a lot about health care, and we talk about the issues in health care. What is the difference? I mean, let's think about it for a minute. Could it be that there's money going someplace other than to health care? Are we running health care as a business and not for our folks? What about, let's talk about medication. Do you realize that we pay an average of $1,200 a year for medication? Canadians pay an average of $800 a year. I mean, what's the difference? Why do we pay the highest for meds, for pharmacy in this country? Is it because $4 billion a year in lobbying? Not from healthcare. Healthcare is, I think, $700 million or something along those lines. But is it because we have really good lobbyists that say, hey, let's do this, let's do this? I don't know. I mean, I'm so excited that because President Biden is hammering down drug costs for the first time. But I'm going to tell you what, I'm happy with it, but I'm not happy with it because I don't know why we pick 10 drugs and we're going to phase them in over 2 or 3 years and no, I may be wrong, but I don't think anyone from the other party voted for that. I may be wrong. You can fact check me on that. I don't know why we're not doing it for all drugs. Listen, we carry the big stick. We are the #1 customer. The United States of America is the #1 customer for meds. You know, when I was in the banking business, when my #1 customer came through the door and said, I'm paying too much on my loan, drop the rate, you know what I did? I said, okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's do it. I don't understand why. I don't understand. Does anybody? That's why I want to go to Washington. I want to understand. I want to see where the money's going. And it's not going to health care. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank
What do you
you.
want to say about health care?
Well, I want to piggyback on a little bit of that.
Go jump on there.
First of all, were you not going to stand here and let me answer to you? That's okay. You just wanted to hear what he had to say. It's okay. I'm going to speak to you anyway.
Yeah, speak to me.
So, first thing I would do is something I wouldn't do. I won't take money from Big Pharma, and I won't take money from Big Medical. That's the problem. When we start profitizing our representation, then we're no longer representatives. We're business people. And so the first thing is what I would not do, and I would not, Well, I haven't accepted anybody's money in my campaign right now. I darn sure ain't gonna go if I get to Washington, D.C., start taking people's money that wanna tell me how to do things. There is no reason whatsoever why medical care costs as much as it does. This is a little bit of my liberal side, because I believe in universal health care. There's no reason why, with the income that our government takes from us on every check that we have ever gotten, there's no reason why medical care, and I'm not just talking about health care, I'm talking about mental health care also. But there's no reason why it should cost Americans as much. You can go to Costa Rica and get meds for $5. You can get help at a hospital, and maybe not the best help, but help in Mexico, and it costs you $50 to get in and out of there. The only reason it costs Americans as much for medical care, health care, is because it has been profitized because of the lobbyists. The lobbyists come in, they spend all this money to help people get elected, and once they're elected, now that there's an elected representative, you can't talk bad about us. You can't tell everybody that you're not helping them because you're profitizing us. And I won't be taking people's money that tell me what to do, because I don't know if y'all figured it out yet, but I don't listen to a whole lot of people other than my mama and my wife about what to do. And I'm going to do what's in my heart, what my Creator calls me to do, and that's how I'm going to live my life. And putting you at risk is not in my gut. It is not who I am and not what I'll do.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Brenda Stone from Chattanooga. One of my really big concerns is women's reproductive rights and health care. I'm very concerned about the impact that Dobbs has had on women's health care, reproductive health care in this country. And, currently here in this Tennessee, we are the proud owners of one of the most restrictive abortion laws in the country. It's caused women to go to emergency rooms with at-risk pregnancies and bleed out to the point of almost dying. And the person who's running for president on the Republican side is in favor of a total abortion ban in this country.
Please ask your
I don't
question,
want to
ma'am.
see people,
Please
women
Please ask
die.
your question.
I want to know how you feel about what I've just said.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I got a lot of experience here in the whole abortion realm, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of a sad story, and I hope you don't cut me off too quick. I'm the surviving father of an aborted child. When I was 20 years old, I didn't find out about it till I was 23 years old. Now, for one, I take accountability for my own actions, and honestly, if I'd have been a better person, a better human being, and I'd have given her some hope, she might not have sought an abortion. But she didn't talk to me about it. I don't know about it. I know this much. We can't go back to back seats with doctors who've lost their license sticking coat hangers in females. We can't go back there. I'm a supporter of it belongs back at the state. I don't think it's a federal thing. I think it's a state thing. I have one of my favorite liberals on the planet. She brought this to me immediately afterwards, and she was sitting in my chair. And I told her, I said, do your research and get back to me this evening. When they reversed Dobbs, returned it to the state, I love to research. I'm a research geek. But 47 states already had legal abortion on the books through legislation, starting, some of them up to 16 weeks, some of them up to 22 weeks. All right? Now, we had 3 states, 2 of them, 6 weeks. Some people don't even know they're pregnant in 6 weeks. One of them, all the way up till the 9th month. That's extreme. That's usually who we're hearing from in the world anymore, are the people that are way over there and way over there. But 47 states already had legal abortion on the books when they returned it to the states, and I think it belongs in the states. I actually think that it belongs on a ballot in every state, that we actually get to vote for it instead of having people that are supposed to be representing us but don't show up to represent us. I don't think it should be in their hands. I mean, if they don't even come and receive a question about it, I don't think they really care about it. But I do not believe in an abortion ban. I don't remember which Democrat said it, but I do believe it 100%. Although I don't believe everything the Democrats say. It should be available, it should be safe, and it should be rare. It should not be a form of birth control. And I'll be honest with you, I don't believe we should pay for it in health care. I think you have people who raise a lot of money that could help those girls out. Just what I think.
Mr. Allen?
Tough question. You know, I was raised by a mom, 3 sisters. I was married for 38 years. I have a daughter. I'm caring for my 91-year-old mother-in-law today. And my life has been defined by women. When my mom was probably 85 years old, I was sitting talking to her one day. We were just chatting a little bit. And, you know, I mean, there's a lot of confusion about the right to choose. And I looked at my mother and I said, Mom, what do you think about that? And she looked at me and she said, why do you ask? I said, well, I just want to know. She said, it's not your decision. She said, it is between a woman and her doctor. She said, your job, son, is to love, support, help, but you don't tell your sisters, you don't tell me, and you don't tell any woman what to do. You have no idea. You don't understand the issue. And I said, okay, I think I got that. And when your mother says something, you listen. But the problem is, in Tennessee, our maternal death rate is in the lowest 4 in the country. Think about that for a minute. 36 deaths per 100,000 of complications of pregnancy or during pregnancy. Does that make you happy? I don't think so, because those are people's wives and mothers and sisters and daughters that are dying because they don't get the care that they need. And why don't they get the care that they need? There's a couple of reasons. Number one, we were too lazy, cheap to expand Medicaid. We could have expanded Medicaid, you know? I mean, look, think about it. You know what we did? We didn't expand Medicaid. We lost about 15 hospitals in this. We lost about 150,000 jobs. We have health care deserts out there. But you know what we did do? We repealed the Halls tax, and we repealed franchise or changed franchise to reward folks up the line, while there are people out there. 2 minutes? Okay. Stay with me on this. More to come. Thank you.
Just to let everybody know, we have basically 3 minutes. So.
Oh, well, on that note. I want to take a sort of a hard, different path. I heard through various reputable news organizations that Sunday and Monday were the hottest days on planet Earth, and that our climate is aggressively changing and not for the better. Do you have, either of you have a plan, or what will you do to address the climate crisis that we are dealing with now, that we will also be handing to our children to manage?
Mr. Allen?
Well, the first thing, and thank you so much, because the first thing we have to say is, yes, there is a problem. And there are still people out there that don't believe it. Yes, there's a problem. Fortunately, the Biden administration put money into climate, the biggest effort to change climate in the history of the country. But it's not enough. And do I have a plan? No. Would I work on a plan? Would I support a plan? Absolutely. Do I think there's a problem? Yeah, put me down as yes. Scooter, you got a minute and a half.
All right. There is a problem. I mean, you can't deny there's a problem. However, I'm more of I love history also, and what we're seeing is an evolution of Earth, and it has evolved many times since its creation. We've gone through ice ages and dark ages, and we're going through something like that right now. What I won't do is pass a whole lot of bills to spend $8 billion building some electrical buses with a company who's never built a bus in the first place, because I think you can take that $8 billion, which that company later filed bankruptcy on the $8 billion that we gave them to create buses. I wouldn't take $2.5 billion to create chargers for electric vehicles and then only build 2 of them. You know, what I won't do is spend hard-earned taxpayers' monies on things that aren't actually solutions. What we need to do is we need to start. I'm a minimalist. I don't live above my means. I think we should all be accountable for what we do. I have women that come and sit in my shop and they complain about climate change all the time. They go get in their Yukon. And that don't make sense to me. If it's really an issue for you, why didn't you ride your bike here today? I won't be a representative that gets on a private jet and puts all those emissions out there. But what I will do is I will try to seek actual solutions to the issues that we have without bearing down on the power grid to where we all have to live without air conditioning and refrigerators.
Well, thank you both for answering my question, for being here today.
Yeah, I don't know what else I got to say. I'm more of a question answerer than I am, because if you let me up here behind this thing, I might get to preaching, and then I might be here for about 2 or 3 hours. Because I think ultimately everything boils down to how we choose to live. You know, we don't have a climate problem if we're not gluttons. You know, if we're not going above and beyond everything, because we got to have more, we got to have more, we got to have more. I need more, I need more, I need more. And if we could get back to what's true, which is people, getting along with people, being kind to people, stop bad-mouthing everybody and all this, that, and the other. I think that the one thing that I miss out of Washington, D.C. that I don't ever see anymore is diplomacy. I don't see people respecting other people's opinions. I don't think you ever get anybody to the center of agreement when you can't leave your post on the far right or the far left. I've never liked tug of war. I invite everybody who's in here and everybody who watches and everything else. You can join me on the sidelines while we watch the flag, and we can let them fight over the flag, and we can get a hot dog, and we can live as one in peace and accord with each other instead of just creating issues to fight about over and over and over, because fighting isn't a solution. Communication is where solutions come from. You putting yourself aside to listen to your neighbor, to listen to a fellow American, to feel their hurt, hear their pain, and then try to get to a place with them to where they can receive some healing. And I'll tell you right now, our nation needs some healing. I mean, we don't like each other anymore. Neighbors don't talk to each other anymore. I was telling John, I was late coming up here because there was a dude who was working on his freaking car with a hammer. And I said, dude, that's an odd tool to be working under your hood with. And so I helped him jump his car off, because I think that's how we need to be as Americans. Be there for your fellow American instead of being there to fight with them.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to be here. You know, when we started this campaign, we said we're going to tell the truth and we're going to be civil. And that's what we've tried to do. We don't use the word fight. We've never used the word fight in our campaign because time for fighting is over. You're exactly right. We don't need to fight. We need to work. Now, let me answer one question, because people have asked me, you know, I'm a banker. People say, Jack, I don't understand. Why are you running as a Democrat? You don't look like a Democrat. You kind of look like somebody else. And I had options. I had options to do a lot of things. But let me tell you why I'm running as a Democrat. Because I'm a guy that gets things done. I get up every day. I don't play golf. Hey, listen, I don't play golf. I don't hunt. I don't fish. I don't play poker. I work. That's what I've always done. That's what I like to do. I like to get things done. You know who else gets things done? Democrats. Hey, look out at this lake. Is this a beautiful lake out here? You like this lake? You like turning on the electricity out here? You know who brought that to you? A Democrat. The TVA. Hey, this East Tennessee used to be horrible, but a Democrat believed in East Tennessee and said, you know what? I think we can make this a nice place. And we did. How about Oak Ridge? How about atomic energy? Who brought you that? Democrat. Who brought you civil rights? Who balanced the budget the last time it was balanced and had a surplus? A Democrat, Bill Clinton. By gosh, I love that man. What about health care? You know, everybody says, oh, we hate Obamacare. We hate Obamacare. Well, we may hate it, but nobody's come up with anything better. And we got 41 million people insured that hadn't been insured through Obamacare. And who brought that to you? A Democrat. Hey, how about Biden? Everybody gives him a hard time. But you drive down the roads and you see construction, you see new bridges, you see new dams, you see locks being finished. Hey, things are getting done. Hey, what about chips? Remember when you couldn't buy a refrigerator because there were no chips? Guess what? We make chips now. 50,000 new jobs. We will never be held hostage to chips again. And who brought that to you? A Democrat. Now, hey, That's why I'm running as a Democrat. Thank you.
Well, I think that was entertaining. Thank you both for being here, and good luck in both your campaigns. Thank you. We'll take a five-minute break. Okay, welcome again, everybody. I would like to go ahead and start with introducing Ms. Jane George. She's our candidate for District 2. Okay? As with our previous format, we'll go ahead and have Ms. George have some opening comments, and then we will take questions.
So shall you just use this?
You can use this or either one. This is probably a better live mic.
Okay. All right. So hello, and thank you for those of you who are staying. I'm seeing some familiar faces and a couple of people I don't think I've met yet, so thank you for being here. I'm Dr. Jane George, and I am running for the U.S. Congressional 2nd District. And I want to start by saying that there are very strong reasons for women to be running today. Only 28% of Congress is actually female. The representation that we have as a consequence is different than it would look if we had a more balanced body representing our nation, something that was more akin to who we are and the dynamic that we have within our nation. So running as a female means that I am committed to taking on issues that seem to not be rising like cream to the top. Healthcare is a big one. Of course, that's been part of the national debate here back since Hillary Clinton first started talking about it in the early 90s. Way back then, I actually went to London to look at a system that was both a private and a public system back in 1991, and did a study in hospitals to see if the quality of a childbirth experience was affected by income. I've been doing this for a long time, working in healthcare, supporting women through labors in institutions like Cedars-Sinai and big hospitals, but also for people who are choosing to have their babies in birth centers or at home, because really that decision should be made by the mother, just like the decision to have or start a family, just like the decision to potentially not have children. All of these are valid and real, reasonable options for women. The only person that a woman, should have to have a conversation with about whether or not to continue a pregnancy is a physician. There's not a single politician on the planet who knows more than a physician about what is appropriate for an individual woman in her experiences, in her decisions. I'm so tired of this, let's talk about 6 weeks or 15 weeks or 20. That's not our decision as politicians. That's a medical decision. I also want you to know that this whole idea of 9th month abortions is fabricated. I'm a physician. It doesn't happen. That would be called murder, and it doesn't happen. There are times when a woman has carried to term a pregnancy that has gone in a direction of non-viability. And there are times when in those experiences, there has to be a horrific decision made. Because sometimes those non-viable pregnancies don't get the signal to the brain of the body of the woman who's carrying them. They can cause women to go septic. They can cause a woman to hemorrhage because the placenta will continue to grow. And as the bigger it gets, the more blood supply is there, and the more blood supply, the more likely a woman is to have to hemorrhage out. Right now in the state of Tennessee, almost 5,000 rapes have resulted in pregnancy. Almost 5,000. Right now in Tennessee, 1 in every 3 women does not live within a 90-minute drive to a hospital or to an obstetrician. That includes women of non-reproductive age that live in those same communities whose physicians have left. So there is no such thing as a general practitioner who knows how to do a pap smear on a 75-year-old woman that has the ability to be able to detect the subtleties in breast tissue changes for breast cancer. There's not one that's really schooled in how to deal with the subtleties of hormone replacement, bone density issues. Those women of non-reproductive age here in Tennessee have lost their health care as a consequence of these draconian laws. This extends into our economy because right now 58 cents on every dollar is spent by a woman. So when you start trying to crash the world around the female, you crash the economy with it. It's bad fiscal policy. In fact, healthcare and not providing healthcare to our citizens is bad fiscal policy. Billions of dollars, not millions, billions of dollars have been lost to the state of Tennessee because of our refusal to accept Medicaid expansion. Now, just in case somebody, and this happens where I get these arrogant people that are like, well, you know, everybody could, here's the truth. We have TennCare. TennCare takes care of the people that are in the lowest economic brackets, and we need that. And then we have private health care that's affordable, accessible, and depending on who you are, maybe or maybe not affordable. And then you have a gap of people that don't fall into either of those categories. And that varies in every year in the terms of the numbers of people. But those people don't have an option. A lot of them are women who are working part-time jobs. Did you know that 90% of child care and elder care is provided by women? Why isn't that protected? Why is it that if a woman, and she's not going to have health insurance if she's working part-time, that's going to become her gig. She's got to get that for herself. 40% of women who are in a situation where they need to care for a husband, a sick child facing cancer, a husband coming out of heart surgery, a parent dying from dementia and Alzheimer, some challenging thing, 40% of those women within 12 weeks have fallen into poverty. Takes 12 weeks. Why aren't our leaders talking about these issues? I'll tell you why, because they're women's problems. They are not women's problems. They are families' problems. They are the problems for mothers and grandmothers and husbands and uncles and leadership within communities for those who depend on women to serve in that way in their communities. We need to make sure they don't fall into poverty as a consequence of caring for a sick child or their husband or partner. It's astounding to me that these are not seen as family issues. All this hoopla about family and life, and come on, these are real issues that are facing us every day. And you know that a woman who does fall into that the 40% who fall into the below the poverty line, they have a very hard time going back to work. Their careers are done. You know, they have to start all over again. Child care right now in the state of Tennessee costs more on average than the tuition to the University of Tennessee. If you are working for minimum wage, which was established by the federal government in 2009 at $7.25, and you are working 2 jobs, and your partner's working 2 jobs, you still can't afford to live in some of these bigger, like in Knox County for sure, because of our housing crisis. It's happening all over the country because developers are coming in from out of state. It's all about lining pockets. It's not about taking care of our own. So we have some very serious issues. I guess I was just supposed to talk for just a minute, and I'm supposed to take questions, right? I forgot about that. I was just going to keep talking. Okay, cool. Well, y'all stop me. If anybody has a question along the way, you certainly feel free to raise your hand and stuff. We don't have to formalize this. You can just shout it out. The room's small enough. But the reality is that we have so many issues that are so specific and affect our women and our girls. And particularly our women and our girls right now, this campaign is about literally saving lives. And we need to do it through health care. We need to do it in ways that are sustainable economically. So women should be paid the same thing for the same job with the same education. But in Tennessee, they make 81 cents for the dollar. It is we are more likely to see a man hired for a job than a female in the state of Tennessee. And when we ask, when we ask those organizations, companies that are doing the hiring, why did you choose this candidate? They say, because he has a family to take care of. Well, a lot of women have families to take care of. In fact, the majority of families in Tennessee right now, the female is the breadwinner. Huh. How about that? So we've got some old ideas mixed in with modern times that need to be updated. Because we've got some real issues and problems in Tennessee that are being affected by simply legislating against families and females. Right now, in the state of Tennessee, every 15 hours, a white mother loses her child in the first year of life due to inadequate health care. And every 7.5 hours, a black mother loses her child in the first year of life to inadequate health care. You cannot tell me that you are pro-life in a state where this is acceptable. We have to start focusing on true family values, your freedoms, your faith. Those are important issues here in East Tennessee. We all carry, I'm 6th generation East Tennessean, y'all. My family's been here for a long time. They fought in all the wars. We go all the way back. My great to the 7th grandfather signed the Declaration of Independence. So nobody can say that I don't know what it's about. My family that's from here are rural people. Most bones are laid up in Thorn Grove. I'm going to entertain some questions. How do I entertain a question?
I just thought we'd get this show on the road. Patricia Ezel. Hi, Dr. George. Would you talk about what your legislative priorities would be when you get elected to the 2nd Congressional District position?
Well, obviously, healthcare is one. You know, I've been talking about that, and you can see that I'm very focused on that. My family are very much Republicans and Democrats. That's normal for me. I'm real comfortable talking to either side. My brother's still pretty extreme Republican, and I do mean extreme to the extent his daughter, he has trouble with his daughter. But the reality is, I grew up being able to navigate those things, and I believe in our forefathers when Alexander Hamilton said that compromise was the key to a stable government. So this nonsense that's going on with these extremes slinging, you know, that we have to get past. Now, I'm going to also be realistic. When you come in the first time, you don't get to pick necessarily, like you get put on the committee that picks the color of the koala bear on the stamp, right? That's your committee. But you do get to caucus, and you do get to work with other folks. So for me, I want to listen to what people value, hear what's really important for the majority of people, especially women. I really want to hear that, and the men that love them, and there are a lot of them here in my district who are saying, we support you, men. You know, they don't feel emasculated by saying, I care about my wife, I care about my daughters, I care about my mother. They feel powerful by saying, I care about my family. It doesn't make me small as a man, right? So I want to take those issues into those committees, into those caucuses, and to be able to say, I'm a voice. I want to work with you, right? Which means compromise. We have to compromise. So I really want to focus on healthcare. And I think that's a big one. And I really want to focus on child care and elder care. And I really want to focus on equal pay. I think when people talk about establishing a new minimum wage, we have to also say it needs to be equitable, sustainable. and living wage. That's very different than saying we're just going to have a bottom line number. We need to talk about it in a more holistic perspective because we're smarter than we used to be when we just said minimum wage. I hope that answers your question. Do you have any follow-up to that? Okay. Hi.
Hi, I'm Susan Gingrich. It's very
Susan.
interesting to hear your perspective. I'm a recovering bureaucrat from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Oh.
I worked for the Department of Public Welfare and for the Medicaid agency specifically, where we had to implement Obamacare and HIPAA. But my question has nothing to do with health care.
Okay.
Okay. You're aware of the Hatch Act.
Yes.
We adhered very strictly to the Hatch Act in Pennsylvania. I couldn't even belong to the local ladies' Republican club. It seems to me like it is out of control in DC, and you have people that are civil servants speaking publicly their opinions politically. And I'd like to know what you would do to curb that so that it did not happen.
Yeah, you know, we have a real problem here in Tennessee. We can see this every day where people are afraid to say what party they're in alignment with or to have a conversation publicly. I know that's true for a lot of Democrats because they're concerned about the ramifications of that. And I think it's wrong. I really do. And I hear what you're saying.
It's a federal law.
I think that I understand that. But I do believe as members of this country that we all have a right to stand up for, on our own private time, our own political allies. So I can't even begin to imagine that it would ever be okay for somebody to tell me or you that you can't be part of a political organization because of your job. So I'm with you on that. I don't think that that's a reasonable or a fair statement.
It's
Yes.
an old act, so you would have to rescind it in some way.
Yeah, we would, and you know, sometimes these things, again, require compromise where we have to talk to things, but I'm so glad you brought that up. You're the first person since I've been on the campaign trail to bring it up. And I hear you, and that's a very interesting thing to hear what you went through. And it doesn't sound right to me. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. Yeah.
I have some prepared questions, so I'll jump in there, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Well, the topic du jour is obviously immigration. So tell us about your solutions for our immigration, our illegal alien crisis.
Okay. So I prefer to refer to human beings as unauthorized, not aliens. I mean, my family came here, although my family's 82% born in United States of America, literally my ancestry. When my family came here, there were people that lived here, and we invaded the space, and we took away their land, and nobody said to us, you can't be here, you're illegal, right? We had to fight wars over it, but. So I like to talk about the fact that we have got to make changes. What is happening right now with people coming into the country who do not have the ability to go through a process in order to claim the need for asylum. The majority are, just let's face it, the majority of people coming across the border are families. And the majority of those are women and children. Nobody from China is packing a backpack full of fentanyl, putting it on some little kid's back in Venezuela, and having them hike that up to the Mexican border. That's baloney. That is manipulation. That is playing to your lowest denomination. I hope that people can think a little harder about that. The money, the fentanyl that is coming here is very real. And it's a very real problem. But it's not coming in those pathways. And it's insane to pretend that it is because somebody on a television show or radio show told you it was. It's not. There's no evidence of that being the problem. But a situation at the border is a real problem in terms of the numbers of folks coming in. The people that live in those states are finding that they're very burdened in many ways with the ways that they can support and sustain these people who need our help. Our good Christian hearts should be helping these families who are leaving sometimes horrific environments. So we have to fix the system. There was a bipartisan bill that was up that would have taken some steps, but let me tell you something, it's not going to happen overnight. There is not a solution. When you ask me for a solution, there is not a solution. This is going to be something that has to happen stepwise over time. We had a bipartisan bill, but we couldn't agree how to pass that, and so we didn't. And yet it would have been steps in the right direction. So instead, we're playing triage, right? We're just trying to figure out how are we going to deal and get through today. It's going to take a lot more planning than that. Some of it is our laws. We only have 800 folks to do intakes for asylum seekers. 800. That's not enough. It's just not enough. And of course, there is a lot of media out there that would tell you that there are these terrible people that are coming over here and doing all these horrible things. But let me tell you, the statistics are, based per population, if you really look at per capita, that the people that are committing the crimes here are much, much, much more likely to be born here than anywhere else. It's a red herring that allows hatred and, in my opinion, racism to become part of our fiber as Christians in our communities, or those who may practice a different faith but still care about their neighbors, still have a faith that is committed to making life better for people that are in need. So I think we got to absolutely change things. I think we have to fix them. I know it's going to take some time. We got to get both sides to decide that it's important to both sides, which means we have to pass laws, which means both sides have to not politicize the immigration problem, but really try to fix it. Let's look at it with compassion and see what we can do. The majority of folks that are coming here are working. Every time they buy a loaf of bread, they're paying the same sales tax you do. Because guess what? There's no income tax in Tennessee. The tax comes in through sales tax. So every time someone comes here who may not be authorized, they're paying the same tax you are because they're doing it through the sales tax. So let's not get distracted by a bunch of silly garbage things that don't exist. Let's look at the real problems. Let's come up with some real solutions. My brother was just telling me he was down on the 4th of July. He was went to a big waterfall, and he went with a friend of his and his son, and he said we were the only white people there. And there were all these people, and I'm not going to even get into what the racial divide was, but it was actually very mixed. And he was saying that there were people in there wearing their flag swimsuits, and they were there with their families, and they were singing patriotic songs, and he started talking to people, and this guy has been here, he's been here for 14 years, he's a painter, and his sister just came to join him, and she's cleaning houses, and look, you could talk to farmers, especially if you want to get into some of the West Coast stuff. They couldn't survive if they didn't have the support of the migrant workers. I mean, it's just, if it were the case that they could, this would have been solved, right? If this was easy, it would have been solved already. But he was very touched by the fact that these people were so patriotic. Some of them didn't even speak English very well. He called me literally with tears in his eyes. I could hear his voice break saying, "They're just like me, Jane. They're just like me." I was like, well, of course. They fought long and hard to be here. We don't have a system to make it possible for everybody to come here legally in a way that is compatible, that works for both us and those folks who are coming, who are hiking up here. But we do need to find solutions. I do agree with you.
Let's switch gears a little bit to education. Okay. Average teacher pay in Tennessee is $55,000. Adjusted for inflation, this salary is 10% lower than 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, do you support a statewide raise for teachers? Okay. And then also, along the same vein of education in general, state versus U.S. Department of Education, who should control standards on curriculum and why?
Okay, well, first, of course, I support teachers and having a living and sustainable wage and being acknowledged for the work that they're doing for our children. Absolutely. That's not even, there's no doubt about that. Tennessee is in the lowest of nations in terms of what we pay per child. So if you are in a circumstance where you're not funding education, you're not paying teachers, you're telling them how to teach, you're telling them that their books in their libraries and their classrooms have to be approved by someone who may not even have the authority to know what that book is, maybe have never even read it. It's insane. Our churches shouldn't be running our schools. Let's just put it that way. I do believe that having a standard for education at the federal level is a good idea. Families move from state to state. A child that lives up in the mountains in Appalachia should have access to the same curriculum that a kid in Chicago does, which should be the same as a kid in Tennessee. So that when we talk about the ability to manifest the American dream, which is slipping between our fingers right now, we have to be able to understand that the only way to do that is not to discriminate, not to say because you were born poor, you don't have the same access to education, the same information, the same quality of textbooks, the same quality of teachers. So I absolutely stand strongly that we need federal regulation. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why. Because when we have a government that starts to behave not in the interest of its citizens, not even necessarily representing the voice of its citizens, we see some of that happening right now in our own state legislature, where we look at the data, we look at the polls, and we see that the majority of people are in favor of something, but we know there's harsh regulation against it. We continue to see that in very specific avenues. When that kind of thing happens, when a government gets co-opted by an organization, a legal organization like Heritage Foundation and ALEC, which is their organization that creates the legislation, puts them in the hands of our legislators and says, make this happen. When that starts to happen and that becomes the value, here in Tennessee, we've been living in Project 2025 for about 4 years. So we're a petri dish. So the consequence of that is it's really easy for the vulnerable to be affected. Those that don't necessarily have the voice, and that's children. And when we start saying our federal government's not going to protect our children from these kinds of invasions, we are failing our children. We all have the ability in our homes to teach our morality. We all have the ability in our homes to say, I don't want you to read this book, my child. Right? I support that. I will fight and defend your right to do that. But it doesn't mean that it's acceptable to do it in our public institutions.
Okay, switching gears again, Social Security. Security Trust Fund, that obviously both we and our employers have paid into, set to be insolvent as of 2033. So mean an approximately 23% reduction in all benefits paid. So what do we do to address the issue in trying to fix the incoming insolvency?
It's a great question. Well, we have to stop borrowing from it. I mean, did you know that that's how we use Social Security? We borrow from it. We use it like a bank. Federal government borrows your money. It borrows your money to fight wars and build weapons, and it borrows your money to do some good things, like try to keep water clean and air clean for folks. But it has to be something that we look at as, and I would say respect as somebody else's money, right? But it was set up this way. It was set up to be a source of income, right? Like bonds, you know, when people talk about we're in debt to other countries, you know, who's carrying our debt, That's really, we're just selling bonds to those countries, right? And by the way, the country that we're most in debt to is Japan. It's not China. China's second, and third is England, and fourth is Luxembourg, and fifth is Germany. So if we're going to cast some kind of weird net over who we have our debt to, let's look at all those as dangerous or companies, or let's start looking at how we as Americans start to not need to sell bonds to foreign countries. That's a long and big challenging change that we could put forth. And it wouldn't be an easy solution. But that's part of the problem, is that we're borrowing from that. How do we change that? We have to restructure where we're getting our funds. And we have to be more judicious about how we spend. And I'm going to bring this back to healthcare just because I think it's interesting. So if we had a universal healthcare system, guess how much of our GDP we spend on healthcare right now with no universal system? Anybody got a guess out of 100%? 70%. Anybody else? Out of all of our GDP spending, what percentage are we spending on healthcare? 17%. 17. 17, a little over 17. How much do we spend on the military? About 3.4. We spend more money, way more money on healthcare without a universal system than we do on our military, y'all. Which I think means we need to take better care of our vets and make sure that they've got homes and they have the mental health care and support they need, because a lot of our vets are living on the streets right now. And I could throw them a pancake breakfast and tell them I love them, or I could actually do something about it. I want to do something about it. But the reality is, this was a study done. It was published by the NIH back in 2021. And the study showed, through looking at meta-analysis, so they looked at a lot of different studies, they crunched a whole lot of numbers, that if we had a universal single-payer system, which doesn't mean that's the only thing. Like, if you can afford a private system, I love the way they do it in England. I mean, like I said, I went and studied it back in the early 90s. I think it's great. If you are a big movie star and you want to have a suite for your friends to have your baby with champagne and caviar in the other room, and you can afford that, there's no reason that I want to stop you from that experience. You earned it, girl. But if you're me, and you want to have a baby, and you're going to have the ability to have quality care, and it's not going to have champagne and caviar in the other room, but I'm going to have a good physician or midwife in the chance of a birth, and I know that I don't risk my life because I don't have access to those things, right? Basics. So you can have both. So for those people who get all angry and up in arms about, I want a private system, guess what? Keep your private system, you can have it. But for those people who would be using the public system, guess how much we would reduce that GDP spend by? 13%. 13%. These are not my calculations. These are not a Democratic calculations, nor are they Republican calculations. These are people that are invested in the healthcare system who are saying, you got to do this. Listen, when they said no to Medicaid expansion here in Tennessee, the Tennessee Medical, they said it was because they have to spend 10%, right? It costs us 10% at the state level. We don't have that in our budget. We're not going to do that. People pull themselves up the bootstrap and whatever happens, happens. Well, the Tennessee Medical Association, the TMA said, oh, no, we need this. We'll pay the 10%. The doctors said, we will pay the 10%. That's how important it is. And the state still said, no, because that really wasn't the reason. So we have to find ways to establish more efficient spends, and one of them is through healthcare, right? When you talk about how do we change things, for Social Security, we've got to find other resources of money, right? And that means we have to be smart in our spending.
Going to switch gears on you again. Okay, privacy and security. European countries, among others, protect their citizens' personal and now digital information from being sold or traded to third parties. Should not the U.S. government do the same? And then part B to that question is artificial intelligence poses a threat to our nation's security, and especially now during this election cycle. What can Congress do to protect the citizens? Oh, and the third part is do you favor assuring, what safeguards do you favor for assuring only U.S. citizens vote in elections, and what form of identification do you favor for that purpose?
Well, that's really three questions. They're not the same question. But I will start with the first one, and which is talking about cybersecurity. So it's interesting to me that I think that it would be great if we could. But you know what that requires? That requires regulation. And the very people who don't want regulation are the ones complaining about their data being stolen. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, how come my Apple's so expensive? What's Joe Biden going to do about it? Because Joe Biden doesn't set the price of the Apple. That would be called socialism. And I don't think that's what you want, the people that are having troubles with the cost of the Apple. So when we talk about regulation, there are places for regulation. And this would absolutely be one. And it means going after those hugely profitable industries and saying to my buddy Elon, we're going to have to shut this down. We're not going to sell this anymore. To Amazon, to Bezos, we're going to have to shut this down. Well, those are the very people giving these politicians so much money so that they can win their races. It's become a really unhealthy exchange. I wish money was out of politics. It's one of the things I love running. I really want the job. I'm looking forward to the work and growing and learning and expanding and being a good representative and talking to all sides and all those things, right? But I spend more time, I think, in this campaign having to wag my tongue with my hand out saying, can you give us some money? We really need some help. We need some support because we're up against big money, PACs and, you know, all of those things that have come to roost in our political environment. So absolutely, I'm in favor. Would I be able to do that? Wow, I don't think one person could ever sever those relationships, but we could certainly start a conversation about it. And we could make your security and your privacy more important than their profit dollars. Wouldn't that be a strange thing in the United States of America, right? But that's what would have to happen, and that's a big shift. That's a big title shift. But I'd absolutely advocate for it. Okay, what was my second question? Oh, yes. So AI is one of those things that, especially if you're, concerned about what's already happening due to our dependency on technology, especially for our kids, on the phones all the time, not having to have conversations, talking with their thumbs. We have a problem with kids learning to interact with each other. It's a very real problem. There are people in their teens that will say, my nephew and niece are two of them, I don't use my phone for a phone. Just send me a text, right? So this is a real issue that we're seeing and it's generational. And AI is going to be something that could absolutely bring take that level of communication, ability to communicate, but also to access information, to share ideas, just down. If a kid can write a paper just by saying, write a paper about, right? So I think that those are things that need to be regulated. One of the things that's been happening, which is interesting, and of course, you can only do so much as the government. You can't certainly go into people's homes. But in some schools, I know in California, which I know not everybody loves to hear that word here, but in schools in California, they've made it, you can't have a phone. Kids can't have a phone. You can check them in and you can check them out, but the kids cannot have a phone in their pocket all day because teachers are having such a hard time teaching because kids are just sitting there on their phones. So if you have to spend your day and actually have to have access to information, have to write a paper, have to solve a problem, have to create a hypothesis, and you don't have a phone in your hand, then at least we know those kids aren't using AI in the classrooms. So that is one small way that we can try to protect our children from AI at least. It's harder with adults, you know, because you have free will, and we want to have free will because we're Americans, right? And we don't want to be overregulated. We don't want to tell some people we don't have access to these things. So we have to make personal decisions. We have to become really aware. I mean, one of the things that they have done that I think is interesting, and of course it's voluntary, but if you do write something that's AI on social media, you're supposed to say so. It gives you a little place where you can say this was written by AI. Now, of course, if you're malicious and you're doing it to, you know, to do harm and damage, you're not going to say that. But, you know, it's a feeble attempt. But I don't think we have those solutions yet. This all happened so quickly, right? I mean, AI was been around for a while, but then really, literally, don't y'all remember, like all of a sudden, it was really, I thought it was shocking how just boom, here it is, it's huge. We had AI in the last time I ran an election, and I had it used against me in some of my campaigns, and I mean in some of the things that we did in our campaign. And we could go in our social media, and I could see the person who had done it, and I could click on it, and I could go deep enough, and I could see all of their friends, and all their past posts were in Russian. So I had Russian bots in 2020 in a state campaign. I had Chinese bots in 2020. So it's something that I saw was already this invasion in terms of cybersecurity. We had a lot of work to do to protect ourselves, but I think we have to focus on our children especially. And when it comes to what's going on in terms of the political thing, I really kind of like to go back to the old standard, which is if it's going to be called news, it has to be verifiable. You got to have at least 3 sources. And it can't be an opinion. Opinions are opinions, and I have lots of opinions. Believe me. And you might not agree with all my opinions. But I wouldn't call those news if I was talking to somebody. I wouldn't call those facts. I wouldn't call them data. Right? And there is a distinction. We have a television station now that calls itself a news station, but when it was registered, it was given, the owners of the station were given the opportunity to register it as a news station or as an entertainment station. A news station in those days actually did mean something. And you had to follow certain standards. And those guys chose entertainment. But they called their shows news. So people, gullible, thought they were watching news. But it was entertainment, which meant it didn't have to be verified. We didn't have to have sources. And now we see other stations that might be on the other side that are starting to use very similar formats to just try to keep eyes on them, right? And so we have to be smart enough to separate ourselves from all the garbage that's out there, do our work, do our research, and remember that any given thing that we see could be a manipulation. I see, even in my campaign now, I see stuff that comes up and I'm like, and it's on my side, it's my team. And I'll see it and go, oh, I don't know, that doesn't make sense. I'm gonna look into that, right? Critical thinking. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience?
I just have a simple one.
Sure.
Do I need to go up there?
No, go ahead, just say.
My name's Shelley Keene.
Hi, Shelley.
Hi. As I'd like to support you as an individual, what's the best way I can support you?
Oh, thank you.
Without necessarily writing big checks.
Yeah.
Love to do that. But
Well, you could get other people to write big checks. That's one thing. No.
that's my question.
Yeah, so this is true for anybody who is involved and wants to become engaged with a candidate. So I'm going to give you things that were not specific to me. Because there could be people in this room who might want to support another candidate, and I want you to do that. Because I love seeing civic engagement. I love seeing people run on the other side. Because that gives you the opportunity to hear, okay, this is issue-driven, and I believe in this, and this is issue-driven, as opposed to, well, my daddy was this, so I'm going to vote this way. Right? Let's start dealing with issues. So I want to say to anyone that's here, get engaged, be involved in the process. Now, most candidates will have on their website or maybe in their social media, they'll have a way that you can connect with them or someone in their campaign. That's the place to start. Look for their websites, look on their social media, and see if you can find a way to connect to them. Go hear them speak. Go look at what they're posting. Go look if they have a YouTube channel, what they're saying. Make sure that you're lining up with somebody whose issues are yours and not, again, what your daddy's party was. It's really important, especially for us as women right now. Once you find that, reach out to them. They usually have a list of things that they need. I know in ours, it's like we need people who want to canvass. We need people who will make phone calls. We need people who will host parties. We need people who will throw events. We need people to support our staff in ways that they need support. So like Brock is my campaign manager, and Brock needs help, support. He needs support. And so somebody might say, well, I could help Brock on Thursday afternoons. Well, that's a way to help. Like, it's not saying I'm going to be great at calls or this, but I'm going to give 2 hours a week to support someone that's in the campaign. That's a great way to be helpful, right? So I do think it's also valuable if you can, when you show up for a candidate, to do it on a regular schedule. Like, even if it's the first Tuesday, well, there's only 4 months left, so that'd be 4 days of your life, right? But if you wanted to do something weekly, or you wanted to do something a couple of times a week, or you wanted to dive in. We had somebody who he's retired, and he called and he goes, okay, we could give you 10 hours, I can give you 10 hours a day. I'll give you 10 hours a day. I believe in you, and I want to give you 10 hours a day. And we're like, great, man. He's down here, actually. Yeah, y'all might know him. But he's given us 10 hours a day. And, you know, that's what he wants to do right now. I have a friend who goes around and works in different states. And she shows up politically. She was a writer in Hollywood, very successful. She's got money. She can just show up. So she looks at the people that are doing the things, that have the values that she has, the issues that she wants to fight for, and she drives to that state, and she signs up, and she says, I'm here. I'm going to be here for the next 3 weeks. Use me. And then I'm going to go down to this state to help this person, right? So there, you can see that the process can be varied depending on how deep. But it's so important that we get engaged, and bring a friend, because it's more fun. I mean, it's great for us because we get 2 for the price of 1, and I love me a deal. So I want to thank you all for staying. I really do appreciate it, and I hope that you'll share these ideas. I hope these ideas resonate with you, even if don't all of them do, if most of them do. And if more of them do than do with my opponent, then please come and help us, because we do need you. And some of the stuff that we need help with can be done from your own home. Right, Brock? I mean, you don't even have to get in a car. You don't have to burn any dinosaur fuel, nothing. You can just do it from your car. So bring a friend, and if you want to put together any kind of events, if you like what you're hearing and you want to spread the word, call me, because I'd be happy to come out and talk to you, to a group of folks. Now, we have limited time, right? It's less than 100 days. But if you can get a group of people that haven't heard me, who really want to learn, who have some good questions, hard questions are always welcome. I spend a lot of time, I'm a Democrat, but I spend a lot of time in rooms with Republicans, because that's, I mean, like I said, my family was Republican. I'm real comfortable in those spaces. Let's have some exchanges of ideas, right? And let's be kind, of course. So that's something else you can do. Call me and go, hey, my book club is going to be at this, da-da-da-da. You come and say hi. If I can, I will. Yeah. Thank you, though. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. The
only other thing I would add to that is if you're interested in more information about elections in general, the Monroe County Election Commission's website, the Loudoun County Election Commission's website are excellent places for more information about early voting, polling places, and just, you know, election information in general. They're excellent websites. Thank you, everybody.